let's say that you could go to heaven, right? And heaven was absolutely everything that God has promised that it would be, right? No sorrow, no pain, no tears, no distress, no sin, no shame, right? None of the stuff that we have to live with here, right? All the things that God promised that would be the pavement of gold, everlasting life, beauty and health and joy and abundance and just everything. Okay, can you imagine everything that heaven, right, it is promised to be? But Jesus isn't there. Would you still want to go to heaven? And that is a very interesting question, a very serious question. Let's say heaven's like this Kinder Egg, and everything that you have been promised is there, right? Everything that's promised is really truly there. But the one thing that's missing is Jesus. Would you still want to go to heaven? Or a better question would be, is heaven going to be heaven if Jesus isn't there? Now let's say that you were offered right now, like let's say life is really cruddy for you at this particular moment. Let's face it right now, right? The world is in financial crisis. The world is in health crisis. The world is just plain in crisis. So you could go to heaven now and just, that's it. Don't need to deal with it anymore. But Jesus isn't there. Would you still want to go? Would you still want to go? And that's something you really got to ask yourself and look at. But the true question in the midst of all that is heaven really heaven if Jesus isn't there? I want you to think of the disciples. I want you to think of Mary and Martha. I want you to think of all the people that Christ really touched, really encountered, and really touched while he was alive and in ministry for 3 years. For all of these people, before Christ, life was life. They were living it. They were going through the motions. They were possibly following the laws as best as they could. Right? They would be going on Sabbath to the local synagogue. Or maybe not, because some of them weren't really God followers. But he made all the difference when Christ came along. So before Christ, life was life. With Christ, there, during those 3 years, with Christ, Christ was life. They all wanted to be with him during that. Because he just made all the difference. And they were just drawn. The scripture tells us that there wasn't anything physically about him that drew people, but there was just something about him that drew them. So with Christ, Christ was life. And then during those 3 days, when he was crucified and buried and gone in the tomb, without Christ, life was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. It was empty. It was void. If there was anything at all, it was full of fear and confusion and doubt and self-loathing and pain and loss. Because they had known Christ. They had been in his presence. And now suddenly, he was gone. And with the return of Christ, living for Christ became everything. living for him, sharing him with anybody who would possibly listen, became everything. It was life-changing. And there was joy just in the fact of knowing that he wasn't dead, he wasn't buried, he wasn't gone. He was alive. And everything, all their joy hinged on that fact. And so when we talk about heaven and all its glory and all its amazing things, and it is as God promises it's going to be, is it everything if Christ isn't there? Do you want to spend eternity in heaven without Christ himself, when the real meaning of living is Christ? Psalm 16 verse 11, thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore. It all hinges on Christ. It all hinges on him. I guess what I'm asking you is, how important is Jesus in your life right now?